and welcome in to the 5th installment of the Out of Bounds podcast presented by The Pen, IUP's student voice. I'm your host, Josh Carney, joined in studio by Kyle Condor, our assistant producer, Dimitri George, and a freshie, in a sense, one Cody Benjamin. Guys, how are you?
I'm doing excellent. How about you, Josh?
Is it cold? Is it colder than it has been the last couple of days? Like I feel like today was colder than the negative 18 day. I don't know why. I was getting the ice off my car.
I walked in the office today and I had to stop and look at myself in the mirror to make sure my face didn't fall off. So it is pretty cold.
Really? You guys are cold?
I'm cold.
Really?
I'm cold. I'm still cold.
Well, okay. Well, this is a sports podcast in case you guys knew that. Or didn't know that, I guess. But some news from around the world of sports. The dunk contest participants were announced today. Kyle, why don't you take us through that?
The list for dunk contest contestants this year will be Paul George, John Wall, Damian Lillard, Terrence Ross, Harrison Barnes, and Ben McLemore. If I were to say so myself, that's a lot better
than recent history.
Yes.
Do you guys have a favorite right now?
Let's do it real quick.
Dimitri?
I'm going to go Terrence Ross.
Paul George did win in the past, am I correct? With the light-up shoes, that wasn't Paul George? I believe it was.
I don't know. Actually, look that up. I don't know. I thought this was Paul George's first dunk contest. I'm going to go... Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Cody.
I know very little about the NBA, so...
Pick a name.
Just pick a name.
John Wall. I'm going John Wall.
All right.
Excellent.
I am going to go with one Ben McLemore. That guy's got insane bunnies, dude.
Okay, but did you see what Terrence Ross did to Kenneth Faried?
Yeah, you're right. By the way, guys, I don't know if you know, but this podcast is now on iTunes. You can find us on iTunes under The Pen. It's the music, media, and sports spotlight.
Make sure they, filter to the podcast section.
Yes, don't just look up songs. It's podcast, okay? We are a podcast. It's under that. In other news in the world of basketball, the Cleveland Cavaliers season continues to get worse and worse. Today they fired their GM, Chris Grant, who was in his first year, I believe. The Cavaliers sit at 16-33, and last night they lost 119-108 to a shorthanded Los Angeles Lakers squad that at one point had one player on the bench.
And they had the one guy with 6 fouls and had to keep playing.
Yeah, Robert Sacre, a reserve center.
Who?
Out of Gonzaga.
Sacre?
Come on, out of Gonzaga.
Yeah, but come on, really? You're really gonna make a case for this guy? I could play for the Lakers right now.
No, I'm not making a case for him. I'm saying he had to stay out there because...
No, I know. No, I know he's a player. I'm just saying you're acting like as if he's like, some solid, 25-minute player for the Lakers that could give you 10 and 10.
Well, right now he's playing 20 minutes and giving
why?
them 3 and 3.
Everyone else is almost dead and injured.
Nick Young now out 2 weeks.
Yep.
Hey, can I get a say on this Cavs GM thing? I'd probably fire my GM too if he drafted Anthony Bennett with the first pick in the NBA draft. So
Carney will disagree with that, and tell him why, Carney.
I'm not going to write off Anthony Bennett yet because Mike Brown historically is one of the hardest coaches to play for if you're a rookie. The only rookie that's ever gotten legitimate minutes with him has been LeBron James, and we know why. But Anthony Bennett, to me, he had shoulder surgery before the draft. He was not cleared for 3 months after the draft to work out. So, yeah, he came in overweight. He's only averaging, I think, like 13 and a half minutes a game. And when he's out there, he's playing predominantly with, guys that handle the rock, as in Kyrie Irving, Dion Waiters, Luol Deng now.
my thing is that this is a team that's ready to go. I mean, you just
Yes.
named all those names. Luol Deng wasn't there in the beginning of the year, and they didn't pick up a guy like that because they drafted Anthony Bennett. He just hasn't produced yet. Not many people knew who he was before the season started. I know Canada's on the rise in basketball, but, I mean,
He had a hell of a freshman year at UNLV. A hell of a year. I mean, he was a shock. Don't get me wrong. I like the Cavs, and I was shocked when they took Bennett first overall. I was expecting Nerlens Noel. I was also expecting him to sit out the year like he has for the Sixers. But they had a legitimate need at center, and they passed on Noel and Len because of injury issues. And they took the guy they thought was
They also had Bynum, who they thought...
Well, let's easy. who he signed with the Pacers. I think that's a great move.
I don't think it is, but I mean,
my God, that's a team that hasn't dealt with problems off the court. I mean, that's just going to add media attention to a team that's been, pretty quiet outside of basketball. So
now,
that's
guys,
not something you want.
Yeah, so Chris Grant fired. No surprise there. They promoted David Griffin to GM on an interim basis. But guys, real quick, yesterday was National Signing Day in college football. The Crimson Hawks brought in 21 athletes. I do not have the list in front of me. That will be a topic for another day. But looking in Division I, is there one team that had a recruiting class that really impressed you? I have one in mind right now, but I'll hold off and see who you guys think who had the best class. Dimitri, we'll start with you.
They do it every year.
Roll Tide.
I mean, where else am I gonna go with this? I mean, honestly, if I was a recruit, and Alabama wants me, it's hard.
4 out of the top 5 were from the SEC.
Oh well, I mean, again, if I would love to have the opportunity to be wanted by D1 universities to play in college football, let alone the SEC. And to me, there's nothing like playing for Alabama.
Oh, yeah.
And Nick Saban. I know Nick Saban had his troubles in the NFL, but he is a hell of a college football coach.
Mm-hmm.
Not only with Alabama, he did with LSU. And, I'm not surprised the fact that, Alabama really stole the show, I guess, again. But they just do it every year, and you got to give credit to where credit's due, and I got to give it to Alabama and Nick Saban and his ability to bring top recruits year in and year out. And people want to be angry and stop talking about Alabama as the top team in the country. Well, I'm sorry, they're going to remain there as long as Nick Saban's there. They're not going away.
Yeah, before you even finished that question, I was thinking, Alabama, and I didn't even get a chance to look at, all the, the expert rankings on the recruits, and I was, I think just the reputation that Alabama has, it's, kind of speaks for itself that, players want to play there, and it's going to be a university that's always going to be, at least for now, a top, recruiting.
And Cody, you mentioned Alabama. You covered IUP, the football team this year, the past 2 years actually, and we all know Curt Cignetti comes from the Nick Saban coaching bloodline. Do you see the Crimson Hawks becoming Division II's version of Alabama in a sense?
You mean recruiting-wise?
Where kids want to come play for him.
Right. I think definitely as the years go on, I think that's a possibility that will become stronger. I think now already he's kind of shown, they are a very powerful Division II team, and in a short time he's already kind of made this team a real contender. And even after, how we saw Harvey Tuck left, that was a great player, and he was just able to keep the running game, one of the strongest in the nation in Division II. So I think, definitely, as the years go on, it's going to get even more, an attractive school to come to.
Just one quick thought on the Crimson Hawks recruiting class. There's one guy, last night I looked him up on YouTube. His name's Jordan Brown. He's a 5'9" athlete out of Chambersburg, PA. Went to Chambersburg Area High School. He's a dynamic athlete. He played mainly running back in high school. If you look him up on YouTube, he's got a ton of speed. He's pretty powerful, pretty shifty. But that's basically what IUP needs, especially losing a guy like DeAntoine Williams this year. Eric Finkley, I believe, is gone. Correct. He's a senior. So you have Patrick Ferguson and Izzy Green as your top 2 running backs. So, no, it's not bad at all, but you have to continue to reload, especially injuries could play a huge role. You never know who could transfer out too, but one guy I'm looking out of this class is Jordan Brown, who I think is going to impress people here, whether he plays offense or defense. So I'm excited.
I think Curt does a great job of kind of getting guys ready right away. Eric Finkley was hurt a little bit this year, but he still was able to be a good backup, a reliable backup for DeAntoine. And in the 2 years here, Rocket had incredibly productive season. So I think no matter who Curt has there, and if it's a talented guy like the recruit that you mentioned, I think their offense could be even more explosive. And Curt just does a great job bringing those guys in and having them have an impact right away.
Yeah, let me help you out there, Cody. Signetti says that this is the strongest recruiting class that the IUP football team has had in 3 years. So that just goes to show you how confident he is in himself, just like we are in him.
That's a testament to what he's built here in the past 3 years, the foundation he's built upon. Kids want to come play for him now. They see the experience he's had coaching NFL players. He's getting transfers from Division I schools to come here to play right away and make contributions. I wouldn't be surprised if he wins a national title in the next few years. But if not, I think he's still going to continue to win games. And he may get a fantastic job offer from a Division I school. 2 years ago he got an offer from Southern Miss, and he turned it down, which was a smart move. But bigger and better jobs are going to come along as he continues to win. He may stay here, he may not, but we just have to just continue to ride the wave that we're on with him.
Yeah, I think what he does here is just kind of adding on to a resume that he already has, because before Alabama he coached Phillip Rivers at NC State, so it's not like this, he came here with no big-time experience. So, what he's able to do here is just showing that he's versatile and he can work with what he has.
Yeah, Cody, going back to something you mentioned just a bit earlier, how explosive IUP is, there's another team here that's been pretty explosive in the past week or so. The Crimson Hawks men's team has averaged 86.5 points per game in their last 2 wins, or 3 wins, I believe. They've been lighting it up. Saturday, they take on Seton Hill, who they narrowly beat 56-54 on the road last time. Dimitri, we'll start with you. This obviously is going to be a tough matchup at home for the Crimson Hawks. Seton Hill played them tight, like I said last time. Who's the key for the Crimson Hawks in this game to continue the winning streak and just keep this team rolling, offensively and defensively?
It's got to be Brandon Northfleet for me. I look at him as a guy who has really started to play really well for IUP. He really is starting to find himself a role. Obviously, being the transfer from Cheney. He's been playing really well lately, and I think he just provides another scoring option along with Matisse, Marcel, and to me, obviously with Seton Hill coming into the KCAC, you would like to, favor the Crimson Hawks in this one. But again, PSAC play, it's always going to be, so you're going to have to grind out a W. But again, Northfleet to me, just if he continues to keep improving and playing the way he is, that's going to be huge for this team down the stretch going into tournament time.
Yeah, I mean, I'll second what Dimitri said there and also expand on that a little bit. The last time they played this team, they only scored 56 points. You mentioned this is a team that scored on average over 80 points in the past few games here. So apparently they struggled offensively against this team, but they spread the ball well, like they've been doing all year long. I mentioned this last time we were on the show here. All they really need to do is keep spreading the ball, and that's how they're going to see success. A win's a win. They beat them by 2 last time. We, the fans and students, have been very generous to the team by showing up to their games. So if we could get as many people as we can out there on Saturday night, it's a home game, so we can make this definitely more lopsided than it was last time.
I believe it's University Square is hosting a whiteout for Saturday against Seton Hill. So I expect students to turn out. They have to. I would like to see another atmosphere like the Slippery Rock game. Obviously, it's not a big rivalry, but Seton Hill is just 40 minutes down the road. They could have fans travel here. I kind of doubt it. But it's a PSAC game. It's a conference game. It's a big game for the Crimson Hawks. From here on out, every game is big in my opinion, because it's the final tune-up before tournament play starts up. So I would like to see Northfleet, Matisse, and Marcel really get rolling and just light it up, each over 20 points. That's what I would love to see.
Yeah, and I mean, you speak about this game versus Seton Hill, who's not a very strong team. What we've all got our eyes on is what's going to go on next week. They got a game versus Cal and a game versus Gannon. The Cal game is at California, Pennsylvania. The Gannon game is here at the KCAC. So you mentioned the hype of the Slippery Rock game. I think this one, being that we lost to them at Gannon, is just as hype, if not more, than the Slippery Rock game. So.
The Cal game that Wednesday is a revenge game because they should not have lost that game at home. Myself and Dan Wallace, who will join us on this podcast later, called that game, and there's a guy, Jake Jakubek, who just lit him up from all over the court, and I believe Murphy, I can't remember his first name, but he was just a beast in the paint. It's a revenge game. They have to get a W against that team. But guys, switching over to the women's side, they're riding a 3-game winning streak, but last time out against Seton Hill, they lost by 2, I believe, on the road. Crimson Hawks were completely healthy at that point, but they just got beat. They weren't hitting shots. I believe Lindsey Stamp was the leading scorer in that game. But Kyle, we'll start with you. With the women, they are still just bitten by the injury bug. Ashley Stoner, Lindsey Stamp still out. But Talon Watson has really stepped up. Leslie Stapleton has stepped up. Who is your key for the Crimson Hawks in this game?
Got to be Stapleton. As you said, she stepped up of late. They're going to need her to knock down shots, definitely. Because last time out versus Seton Hill, you had Stamp, who had 24. Ashley Stoner didn't really contribute much in the scoring category, but she had plenty of rebounds. So those 2 injuries are going to kill them. If they couldn't beat Seton Hill with those 2 players, it's definitely going to be a struggle without them. They're going to have to shoot high percentage from the floor, and it's going to have to come from Stapleton, who can, rain from 3.
Are you in agreement with Kyle that Stapleton is the key in this game?
Obviously, she's one of the big keys for them. She has been since Stamp went out. I don't know if you mentioned. Do we have any injury updates?
We don't.
We don't?
She may play. She's had a whole week off.
Right.
But
Let's assume she doesn't. And Stoner, we still don't know about her either. Let's assume they don't, but they both don't play. Just for the sake of play devil's advocate here, I'll say Marita Matthew is a key for them. She started off pretty hot against Clarion last Saturday. I think she was 3 of 3 from beyond the arc to start off in the corner, and she was really facilitating the offense, playing really well. And to me, this is her team without Stamp and Stoner. Like she's a floor general. She can facilitate. She can score. Really a solid point guard. And to me, she has to step up for this team if Stoner and Stapleton don't play.
You mentioned solid point guard. My key in this game is Talon Watson. She's been phenomenal in the past 5 games. She's really stepped up. She's knocked down shots. She usually, when she's on the floor, handles the ball and lets Matthew just play shooting guard. So I look for Talon Watson to, again, just keep going and knock down the open shots she gets. But, again, that game is at 5:30 Saturday at the KCAC. They tip off against Seton Hill. The men tip off at 7:30. Dan Wallace and Malusi Kitchen will have that call on 90.1 WIPFM. And I believe Dan Wallace and Mike Gosnell will have the women's game. Are you working that, Dimitri?
Waiting on my mother, which, by the way, happy birthday, Mom. I love you. Is her birthday today. She has yet to get back to me if she will be making an appearance this weekend.
Well, there you go.
Mama George.
All right, guys, that'll do it for the first segment. When we come back, Cody Benjamin will finally chime in again on the topic of should college athletes get paid. Stay tuned. And welcome back to the Out of Bounds podcast. In case you missed it, when we left to go into break, we were talking about news around the world of sports, as well as previewing the men's and women's basketball games here at IUP Saturday against Seton Hill. But guys, now we're going to get into the main topic here. And the debate is, should college athletes get paid? there's been the news about Northwestern football team and quarterback Kane Coulter forming their own union in a sense, trying to get other college athletes into it. There's been I believe it's Ed O'Bannon case from UCLA against, the NCAA, about using his, I think it was his jersey and all that, to gain money or to earn money, something like that. So he sued the NCAA. But it's always been a question, at least in the last 3 years, of should college athletes get paid. Cody, you are the specialist coming in this. What is your opinion?
Well, I feel like just the fact that the union is forming and everything like that, it has a chance to be something really, revolutionary, I guess, in sports, because it could kind of set off a chain reaction. And I think you can make an argument for both, just because some of these athletes really make a lot of money for their universities. But my stance is no, they should not be paid. I think a lot of athletes, it depends on the school and obviously what level they're on, but a lot of them are getting scholarships that are paying for their education, not to mention they're getting a chance to play sports for a living, which obviously not a lot of people get to do. I think the only thing that you can question in regards to whether they should be making money is maybe endorsements and even looking at things like video games where these players, their names might not necessarily be attached, but everyone knows that's who's marketing the games and everything. And some people will say there's a risk factor like injury, like they should be compensated for risking their bodies, I guess, for the university. But that's their choice to play sports. Sports is an extracurricular activity, and they're pursuing it as a career, and that's just their choice. So I think, I would say no, they should not be paid as despite how much they can earn universities.
Yeah, this topic kills me, and Cody brings up some good points and some good rebuttals as well. I just don't understand the idea behind it whatsoever. I mean, for the people who do think college athletes get paid, I just hope you know that it's so far in the future. We're going to be talking about this for a while because I want to know how much these players are going to get paid, who gets paid more than who. It's just going to be so controversial. It's really out of this world. I mean, the thing is, they do get paid in a sense. I'm going to school as an academic scholar, and that's what school is for. These kids are going to play sports and for academics, and most of them are getting full rides to schools like Syracuse. That full ride over 4 years is like $200,000 right off the bat. Now, we're at a school, IUP, that's a little bit cheaper than the rest, but even though the athletes that go here and are getting scholarships are getting $50,000, it's just, there's so much that goes into it. It's a really ridiculous subject for those who I mean, they do bring in a lot of money, but that money goes towards the campus that these kids are walking on. You see all these Twitter accounts and all these pictures that go up saying most beautiful campuses of 2014. That's what pays to make these campuses look the way that they do. This money is going to something better for the college. It's not going towards nothing. And these kids are making the choice, putting their bodies on the risk, like Cody said. And if they don't think that they're good enough to make it to the next level and they're worried about risking their body, then maybe they shouldn't be playing. And that's how I look at it.
There's so many different ways you can look at this whole argument. I had to write a paper on it last year. I'm going to kind of piggyback off my paper from last year. I'm remembering correctly. Kyle, you were talking about who would get paid, how much they get paid. There could cause problems with, like you said, Syracuse's, the Alabamas for football, the Dukes. How much money are they going to get to pay their players as opposed to a team like Wichita State or who they play the other day? You didn't even know? Evansville. Yeah,
I'm sure those kids are going to school for free. They're not making it to the league, so don't play if you want to get paid. Just don't play. And
also, when you talk about, Carney, you always talk about you love college football and you think it could be a little bit of a better game than the NFL or the college basketball. A lot of people say college basketball is better than the NBA. Well, here's one of the things where I think that it is you can make that argument that a college sport is better than professional sport because there's no money involved. They're not playing. They don't have contract. They're not secure. They're not financially secure. They're trying to get to that point where they are financially secure. So they're trying their hardest. They're busting their butt. They're doing everything they can to be the best player they can to put out for their school. And to me, if you start bringing money involved, putting money in their pockets, it's gonna, it's just not. It's gonna worsen their game that they're playing, football, basketball, whatever sport they're playing. You put money involved, they're not gonna be as they're not gonna be as hungry, I guess, to make it. And the more money that they give these athletes, especially for the bigger schools, it's just not gonna go right, I don't think, and it's just my opinion.
Yeah, you make some good points as well, Dimitri. And I think one of the things you were trying to say is that some of these athletes are going to school broke already, and that's why some of them want to get paid. But we all know the saying, it pays to be the boss. I mean, you have to put out money to make money. It's just the way society is, and paying college athletes is not going to help that situation. And that's much more broad than just sports alone. And on top of that, just something else to add very quickly is that these athletes are not just getting full scholarship. I know a guy from my hometown, Ewing, New Jersey, that went to Rutgers. He was a great quarterback. Was he good enough to start for Rutgers? No, he was like a third string, fourth string. But he would go to the Oakley Bowl. Not many people watch that, and get so many pairs of Oakleys. I have one at my house because he just didn't know what to do with them anymore. It's just this, it goes so far beyond getting a full ride. These kids get free equipment. My cousin was swinging a baseball bat in high school that came from Coastal Carolina from his cousin. It's just these kids get so much stuff on top of full rides that they don't need to get paid. It's a ridiculous topic. It just needs to get put to rest.
They are student athlete. Student athlete. Student athlete. There's a reason the student is in front of the athlete. They're not going to school to just play sports. Some of them actually want to get an education, but they play sports as well. And if you put money away, I think you really, so now you're paying them to play sports, and you're going to give them a full ride and also pay for them to get an education. It just, to me, I'm interested to hear another. I think we're all in agreement that they shouldn't be paid. I'm interested to see what someone who does think that they should get paid and what they would say.
I agree with everything you guys have said.
No.
No. I don't think they should be paid. But going back to a point Kyle made, where there's student athletes coming in that are already poor and come from bad situations. The story that pops in my mind is Arian Foster at Tennessee, where he couldn't afford food, and it was a NCAA violation for his coach to buy him and his roommate tacos. The only way I think they should get paid, I'm not talking, hey, here's $5,000 to go out and get a car. I'm saying like maybe $100 stipends a week for food. Like, hey, go out and get yourself some groceries, stuff like that. Not, hey, here's $1,000, go do with it what you want. Therefore, it could be even, because the athletic department could say, okay, we have 100 athletes on the football team. That's a certain amount of money. We're dishing out $100 for each player. Women's swimming, there's 15 swimmers, $100. But it would depend on, again, it would come back to the size of the athletic department and the revenue that they're generating. So this is the point I want to raise, and this is the idea I want to raise. If you take a look at the MLB, they have what they call a revenue sharing system, okay, where all the teams kind of put their money into a pot, and then it's distributed evenly, I believe. Like the Yankees, in a sense, are helping the Pirates because the Yankees a few years ago had a higher profit than the Pirates, so they shared money, okay? So I think the Pirates, in a sense, got like $40 million from it. What if the NCAA started to do that and the athletic departments combined and then you evenly distributed money? Granted, Alabama would be the highest, earning athletic program out there. And then say a team like Georgia State is at the bottom of the rung, but they'd still be getting the same amount as Alabama. There's a lot of flaws in that system, but I think there's a bit of a groundwork there to build off of. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up, just because, one of the points I was going to make earlier is that if they are paid, you kind of have like you said, kind of an uneven distribution, I guess, amongst universities. And you might have schools like Alabama being able to fork out so much money for their players, whereas kind of how Kyle mentioned, smaller schools might not have that luxury. And I think, even farther than that, we have to consider, too, where's this money? I know that, some of the players that argue that they should be paid will say that there's plenty of money out there to pay them, compensate them for their work on the field. But, some of that comes from endorsements and whatnot. But could tuition, for other students also be raised to pay for that kind of stuff? And, obviously that would cause, a whole ripple of other problems, within schools.
Yeah, I mean, this just goes back to what I said earlier. What I meant to say is that it costs to be the boss. I mean, these schools like Alabama that have so much money got that money for a reason. You bring up the Yankees. They got that money because they were so good when the sport wasn't that popular. They got all that money from being good. And now they have the money. It's not up to them to dish it out to other people. I was sitting in a sociology lecture the other day, and we went over quintiles, like how money is distributed amongst just average humans, and like how 84% of the world's money is in one group of people. That's how it is in college sports. That's how it is in professional sports, and it's never going to change. You're not going to get these people to give up their money or even sign something that says we want to give up our money. These Alabama teams are just going all out, taking advantage of the fact, signing 5-star recruits, and I'm sure there's extra things that go into that, just like there was with Reggie Bush and Cam Newton and things like that. But that's not something we'll see on the outside, and I don't think paying every single athlete extra money on top of their scholarship is going to help the situation.
All fair points. To me, this argument is pointless because there's no legitimate solution to make everyone happy, because you have the powerhouses in football like Alabama, LSU, like all SEC teams. If you were to start paying players, the SEC would be it already is, in my opinion, the minor leagues to the NFL. But it could be on par because you'd have all the top recruits being distributed throughout the SEC, because that's where the money would be. For a team in the MAC, say like Kent State, they wouldn't be able to get anyone because there'd be no money involved. This is a dumb conversation. Like, it's a dumb argument. There's no solution.
It absolutely is a dumb argument. And one of the reasons I watch college sports is because these kids are not out there getting paid. They love the game. Half of them are out there knowing they're not going to make the league. Like I said, they're out there knowing they're risking their bodies, and they're still out there playing. You see the passion that college athletes have compared to pro athletes. They're out there giving it 100% all the time. Look, this is one of the biggest sports fans in the world talking right here. And if you pay the college athletes, then I probably stop watching.
I would honestly, I'd tune out. And I get away from the program by watching college because, like you mentioned, these kids are playing for the love of the game. They're also trying to play to better themselves in the future by getting that fat contract from a professional league. But there's true passion. There's the ups and downs throughout the games. I mean, that's why I love March Madness. You watch some of the veteran-laden teams. When they lose, you see the heartbreak in those players' faces. You don't see that in the pros. They're like, oh, well, I'm still making $25 million. And, it's completely different. I think if they paid college athletes, it would ruin the integrity of those sports.
Yeah, I follow the NFL more closely. I'm a big fan of the NFL, so sometimes when people say that, the pros don't care as much, I try and not look at that argument just kind of being biased. But the truth is that, when you're not playing for money, it's, where the desire is there to play sports, to play football. So, obviously, I agree with that point as well. As much as I'd like to say the money doesn't matter because I like NFL, I think, that's absolutely the truth because, they might be playing to get that contract eventually, but they're playing for it. And they're playing because they like the game.
Real quick, you were talking about NFL, Cody, and I'm going to cite a local guy here. In Western Pennsylvania, Lamar Woodley got a big contract. And he had the first season he was playing, half the year, he was having a hell of a year. He had like 2 sacks a game for like a good stretch. And then he got hurt with his calf, and then he's never been the same since. So I think if you start getting money involved, you it just doesn't make sense to me. Like Kyle said, you're gonna really the college sports are really lose. College sports are like you watch those games and you watch a professional game, you can see a difference in the way the players perform, the way they try, the way they're coached. It's all for the love of the game, and I think you put money involved, and I think you're going to lose that. And I think that's the only edge that college sports have on professional.
If they pay college athletes, I think the next step would be you're going to have high school players like top recruits, like, hey, how about you pay me? I mean, I'm generating all this. I'm serious. Think about it.
You're not kidding.
Like, you're going to have these kids say, hey, how about you give me an insurance policy? Like, pay me, a certain amount a week because I'm generating news for this high school. I'm going to go on to bigger and better things. But if I get hurt, I need something to fall back on. It's a screwy situation. There's no legitimate solution. But it will be interesting to see what happens with this whole Northwestern football union team. But, guys, there's another topic today, and will probably play out throughout the rest of the week that's been hotly debated, and that is the use of marijuana in the NFL. In case you missed it, Ryan Clark was on ESPN today.
Shocking.
Yeah, well, he's halfway to retirement. We will play that interview for you right now off of ESPN. It's about 3 minutes long, but just listen.
They need to just let it go. Since Will's gonna do it anyway, he just needs to let it go. He needs to go ahead and just say, y'all go ahead, smoke it, do what you need to do.
NFL analyst Brian Dawkins, and of course special guest and major contributor, Pittsburgh Steelers safety Ryan Clark, join us now to discuss our centerpiece topic. Should the NFL take marijuana off the banned substance list? Brian, I'll start with you. What should the NFL do about this?
I think it would send the wrong message if the NFL all of a sudden says, you know what, just go ahead and have at it. We don't understand all the properties of it. We don't understand if it's addictive or not. So just go ahead and have at it. And I think that would send a bad message to the youth and everybody else. Because NFL, it stands for a lot of things. It stands for something different than your average, as you walk around the street, the average person. The shield stands for something in a lot of people's eyes. And, you look at the heads-up programs and all the things that they're trying to do to help the game out. I just think that this was something that if you continue to take hard stances on, it would help in the totality of understanding the benefits or not understanding, the benefits or the pros and cons of marijuana. So I think that by them continuing to test for it and maybe even give a more stricter test, if that's something that they feel comfortable doing, that it would be a message sent that we as the NFL don't understand it enough to take the reins off of it.
Ryan, do you agree with Brian? Should the marijuana be legal in the NFL for players to use?
I think that's the thing when you say legal, or like when Brian was kind of saying they can have at it. I don't think you promote it as something that you guys should do. Like, hey, you guys go out and smoke weed, it'll help you, or smoke marijuana, it'll help you. The same way you don't promote taking painkillers, or you don't promote guys doing that to get over the pain, but they do. And so for me, if you're going to test for marijuana, make it, and if you want to make a point that you don't want to use in your game, make the testing stricter. Guys know when they're going to get tested. And kind of what Antonio Cromartie was alluding to that he didn't say was that he knows guys who work their way around the test and some guys use it medicinally. I know some guys use it for the stress of the game. And obviously, some people use it because it's something they have done recreationally. So I'm not saying necessarily you have to go out and say, hey, you guys smoke it. But understand, with the way you're testing now and the way that it's being done, you're doing no one justice. You're not keeping it out of the game. And also, when you do pop a guy, when a guy does come up, you put him in the program, and now he goes to something else. Yes. So what I'm saying is, for me, guys are going to do it. Don't test for it. NHL doesn't test for it, but no one ever talks about it. It's not like guys go out and say, or kids that's playing hockey in Pittsburgh say, you know what, I know I can go smoke weed because they're not smoking it in NHL. People who choose to smoke marijuana, people who choose to do it are not going to be affected by what the NFL chooses to test for. For me, though, when you look at it, just because it's popular doesn't mean it's right. All right, that everybody should just have at it. And so that's the point that I'm trying to make in this, is that this is something that. And the other thing is that it's against the law. Okay, it's not something. Now, when that time comes that every state has it that is no longer against the law federally, then obviously it's off the table. But as long as you have an opportunity or you have the right as an employer to say that whether or not we're going to allow it or not, I'm saying that the NFL has already put that as something we're going to test for. So to all of a sudden now take it off the table to say, you know what, we're no longer going to do it, to me that sends the wrong message.
Ryan, you play in the NFL right now. How many players do you think are smoking marijuana?
I can't necessarily say I know exactly how many players. I think the national average is 50 to 55.
Are you
I would say it probably is along the same line, but I've actually seen a guy that had a prescription for Vicodin, and he would take it at the game. He had an injury, he was hurt, and so he's taking the Vicodin. We're talking, and he says to me, "Yeah, man, I gotta take these Vics, because I'm in the program now." He's like, usually, I would go home, I smoke, I relax, and it'd be okay. It would take the edge off for me after the game. He's like, but now I can't do it. I'm in the program. I take these Vicodin after the game to kind of get over the pain. And so I know there are guys who want to use it medicinally, and I understand your point. You don't want it to be abused. But to my point is, I don't smoke marijuana. If they stop testing for it, I would smoke marijuana. In October, when I know there's not going to be any tests and I'm in pain, I'm just in pain. I don't think to myself, oh, I can go smoke because I know they aren't testing. I'm saying the NFL lifting the ban or doing something to where it's not tested for won't promote smoking marijuana. I just think that sends the message that it's okay for that to happen now. That this has been something that we've been testing for forever. So we deem it as an organization to be something worthy of testing for. Now, all of a sudden, we're going to say because 50%, 60% are actually doing it, let's just take it off the table. To me, that sends the bad message of why we are doing it. Why are you now all of a sudden taking it off this? Well, I think Roger Goodell answered the question and said, right now, we're not taking it. We're not going to stop testing for it, but it is something we're going to continue to research. He said if it is something that can help our players, then it's something we would do. So I think we're talking about it as if it's something that's going to be done immediately or right now. They're saying they're going to continue testing for it.
Brian, you live in Colorado where marijuana is legal for recreational use. What are you telling your children about marijuana use?
Well, that's just something we don't promote or we don't do in our household. That's just this decision that we have made because one of the reasons is because if you just go Google it, you look it up, there's so much information on the pros and cons of it. We don't know exactly what the cons are of it. A lot of people will try to tell you like they know matter of fact, these are the cons for it, but you just don't know. And for me, anytime I put a foreign substance of smoke into my body, it was not meant to go down in me, that part of me, as far as smoke is concerned. So I'm not going to promote that to my kids. There's other ways for me to get relief from pain than me going down that avenue. Now, I'm not saying that people who have cancer and they use it for those glaucoma because it does help those things. I understand that. But for me, just to go out and find that as something that recreational, like you keep saying, to do, that's not something that we promote in our household with my kids. Well, exactly. I'm the same way with that, with my children. But that's because it is illegal. Mm-hmm. It is an illegal
in his state.
Illegal in his state. So I know for you, it's a different conversation. I think it's an easier one for me to have, but I can also say, kids, I don't do it. Right. Daddy doesn't do it.
Well, if you think marijuana is legal and will be legal for NFL players to use as they see fit, do you think these players will be taking fewer painkillers because of this?
I do think so. I think that will help guys out in a major way. Now, the guys who aren't in the drug program, who haven't failed drug tests, I think they still do, smoke marijuana. But I know painkiller use is for guys who don't smoke is high. I see guys who go in and say, look, I'm in so much pain, I have this injury. Is there something you can give me for after games that I can take? We had the Brett Favre incident, years ago when he was addicted to painkillers. Mm-hmm. They are highly addictive. And so for me, maybe it's the lesser of two evils, but I know that guys can benefit from it. But I think research still needs to be done. We need to know that this can help guys. And if we find a way and believe that, and if that's what Roger Goodell said, then they have a reason for doing it. Not just saying, hey, guys are smoking, let's take it off the board, but this can help our guys in the long run.
Controversial debate that won't be going away anytime soon. The thoughts of Brian Dawkins and Ryan Clark on marijuana use in the NFL. Today's centerpiece.
All right, so there was the interview of Ryan Clark and Brian Dawkins on ESPN talking about the use of marijuana in the NFL and if it should be allowed and taken off the substance abuse policy. Kyle, you listened to this interview in length before we even got here. What is your take on this? Are you for or against it?
You know, I'm I'm more on the conservative side of almost everything. And I'm not a politics guy, but when I talk about sports, I'm pretty conservative. I like things to stay the way they are. But this topic right here is one where I kind of lean towards the side that Ryan Clark was on. He says that athletes are taking it for injury purposes. Some athletes are taking it instead of other more radical, harsh drugs such as Vicodin. And I think that that's probably better. I mean, studies have been done, and we're not going to get into whether or not marijuana is good for you or not. Studies have been done, and it's better than other drugs is what's been said and what's been almost proven to this point. Brian Dawkins mentions a good point as well. He says if you legalize it, it's just going to get if you legalize it in the NFL, it's going to get abused to the point where players are going to start getting in legal trouble with like the actual law outside of the NFL. So he says wait until it's legalized all over the country, and at that point, I think even Brian Dawkins starts to agree with Ryan Clark. But
that's where I agree with Brian Dawkins. Wait until the rest of the country legalizes it. But if you're gonna, it's tough because you have two teams that, well, actually, I think it's 4 teams that are in states that allow medicinal marijuana use, correct?
Yes.
The Seahawks, the Broncos, California legalizes it, so Oakland, San Diego,
San Francisco.
Okay, so 5. I mean...
So now what do we argue about? Oh, the 49ers have an advantage over the Packers because they're allowed to smoke weed and the Packers aren't. It's just more arguments that get brought up. So I'm kind of on the edge here. Ryan Clark makes good points saying it's a drug that's used for injuries. Brian Dawkins makes good points saying if you legalize it, people are going to start getting in trouble with the law. So I would agree with Ryan Clark and Brian Dawkins, who eventually went on to say that once it's legal throughout the country, then start letting NFL players use it. Because really, where are they going to smoke at? Like where are they going to use this drug at? I mean, our NFL, like what do they do when a cop goes to an NFL owner? Oh, we saw one of your players smoking in the locker room. Oh yeah, we have weekly meetings where everyone goes in the annex room and starts smoking weed together. I mean, I don't know how it would really work. Is what I'm saying.
There's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that has to be worked out for this to happen.
Yeah, just to wrap up my point, it's just so far away from happening. It's really just something that we, the media, should not even be talking about yet. Leave it to the guys in charge of the NFL.
Dimitri, you being a big Pittsburgh Steelers fan, Ryan Clark obviously been an integral part of this team for the past 6-7 years that he's been here. He made some shocking, I don't want to say allegations, but he revealed some shocking news, saying that he knows teammates that smoke weed for medicinal uses to stress reducer. If you're a Steeler teammate of Ryan Clark's, are you pissed off at him?
Oh, man. I saw some things on Twitter. People talking about basically saying the same thing. If you're a teammate of Ryan's, how do you feel about this? You know, he didn't name any names. He didn't point the finger. You know, and this is not the first time where he's thrown some teammates. I don't want to say threw him under the bus, but he said some things about teammates. I remember early in the season he talked about Ben.
Burt Lauren, the Pittsburgh Steelers PR guy, came out and said something along the lines of,
Yeah, I know where you're going.
I can't quote it verbatim, but he said something that we heard Ryan's comments. Yeah, but he also said we believe in the testing system.
Right.
Of the league.
And that's what I was going to get to. Ryan Clark talked about some Steelers players who happen to, smoke a little marijuana. He says that there are only 3 tests, one, I think, in minicamp, one in OTAs, and one right before training camp. I mean, but then again, I've seen the Steelers also make a move trading Santonio Holmes, Super Bowl MVP, for a bag of chips because of weed. So I don't know. If I'm a teammate now who was one of those that he was talking about smoking weed, I think I might not smoke weed anymore. Unless you really, really, really have to, and you really have, glaucoma or something that they need. So, if I'm one of the teammates who actually does, I think the only thing I'm taking away from his comments is that I'm probably not going to do it anymore.
Fair. Cody, getting back to the league issue, just real quick, do you think it's time that they just take it off the substance abuse list? The banned substance abuse list, I should say.
I guess it would make kind of a better argument if you had a concrete opinion on it, but I really agree with everything that Kyle said. Just that, how do you monitor this? Especially that not all states, that these teams are in, it's legal. So you're basically legalizing something that's not legal outside of football. And then even if it were, kind of how Brian Dawkins in the interview, I guess, alluded to, just it could be abused. Like, are they going to be using this in team facilities, under watch of the team? So, how do we know that it's not going to be obviously, used for things more than medicinal purposes? So, right now I would say you have to hold off on it, obviously. Down the road, I guess it could be a better conversation. But right now, no, I think it needs to stay on for now.
Yeah, I'm on the fence with it. I have to let things develop in this situation, both nationally, around the country, as well as within the league front offices. But I'm on the fence. It's a touchy subject. It's difficult. I mean, I can't emphasize how touchy of a subject it is right now.
Yeah, and I don't think it's something you're going to switch overnight either. Like you said, I think, everyone kind of needs to get together, because you can't have some teams, allowing it or being okay with it, even though it might not be technically legal, and other teams, completely against it. So there needs to be a lot of discussion before something like that is put into place.
Yeah, all fair points. Dimitri, I hear what you're saying about the Steelers. Kyle and Cody, it's it's really confusing, and there's a lot that has to happen. But that's going to do it for the Out of Bounds segment of the Out of Bounds podcast. How about that for a tongue twister? But we're going to say bye to Cody Benjamin. Thank you for stepping on.
Yeah, it was good to be here. I hope I'm back soon.
Oh yeah, NFL topics are all Cody here.
I'm looking forward to it.
This is your expert.
Dimitri has a rival. Oh boy.
Yeah, we'll go head to head.
Cody's my that's my partner in crime.
Little apprentice.
All right, guys, when we come back, we're going to touch on college hoops, the Miami Pitt game that went down last night.
Who's coming on? Is there somebody coming on? I don't remember who it is.
I believe Dan Wallace, our
Who's that?
college basketball insider. He'll step into the booth. And we'll probably dish on my Oklahoma State Cowboys. I'm sure Kyle Condor has some things to say about that team. But when we come back, college basketball. Stay tuned. Welcome back into the Out of Bounds podcast, presented by the Penn IUP's Student Voice. Joined in the booth again, as mentioned, by Kyle Condor, Dimitri George, and Dan Wallace stepping in.
Who?
Dan has waited very patiently outside for the entire. No,
Dan Wallace? How have you been, sir? I saw you a couple hours ago. We had advanced video, and you criticized for my lack of movies.
Because the only thing you've ever seen in your life is the freaking Dark Knight.
I've seen Remember the Titans.
Oh, whoop-de-doo. You've never seen Miracle. He's never seen he's never seen the entire Avengers series. Hasn't seen any of that, Jack.
Wait, you've really never seen Miracle?
No,
he's never seen Miracle. No, I'm done.
That's a must-see.
Wait a minute. He said he's seen Remember the Titans. I wonder why, because it's a football movie.
Yeah.
I did name another football movie.
Single-minded.
You want my brother? You want to take this outside?
Okay,
I'm down.
If you love football so much, have you seen The Blind Side?
Yes.
Okay.
Awful
Well,
movie.
actually, but I haven't. Oh wait, I never saw. I never said I was. I always said I'm never going to see Invincible, but
Yeah.
because it was an Eagles movie.
No, it was just okay.
And Michael Orr plays for the Ravens. So we're walking. Go.
Wait. I gotta get
He
back
said
to
he'll never see Invincible because it's an Eagles movie.
No, I
but
said
Michael,
I saw it though.
Yeah, okay, but you didn't second guess seeing Blindside?
No, I did.
Michael Orr wasn't playing for the Ravens in that movie.
I know, but he's on the Ravens.
I
He's
gotta go
also a
back.
bum.
And Invincible played one game with the
This is gonna
Eagles.
take the rest of the
Go.
podcast.
I gotta
No,
get
no.
back to a point you just made. Did you not like The Blind Side?
Awful acting.
Okay. The book
Sandra
is
Bullock
great.
is fantastic.
She was subpar in that movie. The football coach, she was good looking, but the football coach was a joke.
What about the little kid, the little boy?
That was awful.
Wait, we've gotten sidetracked here off the fact that Dimitri doesn't watch movies. Have you ever seen Star Wars, for Christ's sake?
You just knocked my iPad over.
I don't care.
We're walking, Josh. What do you got for us?
Have you seen Star Wars?
We're
I
walking.
saw Star Wars.
Sure you didn't.
What were we gonna talk? College basketball. Last night.
Probably never seen Glory Road.
Glory Road. There you go.
Basketball.
Hoosiers.
Bet you've never seen either of those.
All right, guys. Last night there was an actual game that was played, not a movie. There was two games we're going to talk about. The first one, Wichita State, Indiana State. A lot of people said that this was the last remaining test for the Wichita State Shockers.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
What a test. What a test. Indiana State. I mean, they play in the Missouri Valley Conference with Wichita State. That's a test?
Is that the conference? I don't know conference names. I know teams.
Yeah, that is the conference. The conference that only has 4 teams with an overall record above 500. I've said this before as well. There's only 5 other Division I conferences with fewer teams under 500 than the Missouri Valley Conference. That conference might as well add a couple community colleges to it just to get them some, competition.
So, I remember you telling me that they were up 4. Wichita State was up 4 with like 7 minutes to go.
54-50, remember?
They ended up winning by 7, I believe. 64-57. Is that what it was?
Against Indiana State.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say, it's not a limb. They're going to go undefeated the rest of the year. Do they deserve a number 1 seed? I mean, if the voters, the tournament guys gave that seed, the number 1 seed last year to Gonzaga, who wasn't undefeated last year, can they justify not giving it to Wichita State, Dan?
Well, my thing is, do they deserve it? Not really. Does the committee have to do it? Absolutely. They're probably a better team than this Gonzaga team last year was. This is a team that made it to the Final Four last year, and they brought back their entire starting 5. I mean, they're not some pushover team, but they don't have much of a choice.
Are they the Boise State of football? From a couple years ago?
No. Boise State was more of a out-of-power conference dynasty where Wichita State, this has been last year, carried to this year.
I think if you would compare Boise State football to anyone in college basketball right now, their popular choice would be VCU, but they're struggling this year.
Hey, Shaka Smart, former
I think-
California University of Pennsylvania coach.
I think he should have left
Should've.
VCU when he had the chance.
Yep. His career's taking a hit because of it.
But guys, are we all in the same boat that you think Wichita State's going to go undefeated the rest of the year?
Absolutely.
They have to.
They have. I mean, they got another game on the road this week against Northern Iowa. It's supposedly, listen, supposedly another tough team in the Missouri Valley Conference.
I want to say this though. If they don't win their conference tournament, they don't get number 1 seed.
No way.
Wait, what if they lose a game in the regular season? How far down the top 25 do they fall?
Like bare minimum 10 spots.
Yeah, and that's
being honest because they play nobody.
And that's a good point, Dan. That just goes to show you when they lose to one team that's on their horrible schedule, they drop 10 spots. How are they even at number 4 in the first place?
I want to point this out too. This is Joe Lenardi's most recent bracketology update from this week. Wichita State's getting a number 1 seed. They wouldn't even play anybody. They would have on their side. Obviously, they play 16 seed because he has them as a 1. Then they play the winner of Stanford, North Carolina. After that, they would play the presumed winner of Ohio State and Kentucky.
I mean, as a 1 seed, they'd probably play someone in their Missouri Valley Conference in the first round. Actually, they wouldn't because none of their teams in their conference are going to make the tournament.
You don't think Indiana State would make it?
No, and they shouldn't just like Wichita State shouldn't be a 1 seed because they haven't beat anyone else who's even worthy of like a 10 seed in the tournament.
I will say the top half of that region is terrible with Wichita State, North Carolina, and Ohio State, and then Kentucky and borderline. But the bottom half of that region is insane. Oklahoma State, Duke, Gonzaga, and Michigan State.
Wow.
Yeah. So somebody out of the bottom of that region would be coming out of that group, or that somebody in the bottom of that region would be going to the Final Four anyway.
Yeah. I think Wichita State should get a number 1 if they go undefeated. You can't argue that. Really quickly, just give me your 4. You don't have to elaborate. Who's your top 4 seeds right now, Kyle?
Oh my! I'm not saying Wichita State. I mean, they have to give it to them because they're undefeated, but that schedule is embarrassing. Like, what is their athletic director waiting on with all that NBA talent? I'm saying, and once again, I'm going to say that's nothing against the talent of the team, but you have to prove yourself to be a 1 seed. So I'm going to say Syracuse. I want to hope that Arizona will continue to win games because they have a pretty weak schedule as well. But without Brandon Ashley, that might be difficult for them. I'll say Arizona still because they have a weak schedule. So Syracuse, Arizona, Florida's looking pretty well. And I think Villanova sneaks in there at the end.
Dan?
Villanova, you're crazy. There's number 1. You can't say that it's not the top 4 teams in the country right now because of the 4 teams that are playing the best. If Arizona loses another game, I might kick them out because Brandon Ashley's not there anymore. But
why don't you enlighten our viewers?
Syracuse, Arizona, Florida, Wichita State, in that order.
Okay.
You do understand that Villanova's only losses were to Syracuse and Creighton.
Yes, but here's my other thing. If you're going to hold it against Wichita State that they don't play anybody, Villanova's no longer in an extreme power conference themselves. Creighton, better. I'm not going to deny you that. And they have beaten Kansas.
But their athletic director must be doing something right. Either that or Jay Wright is at least setting them up against some sort of opponent in Kansas, who they beat, Iowa, who they beat, Creighton, who they'll play again because it's in conference. That should be fun to watch. They beat smaller conference teams like LaSalle, who can run with the best. But they lost to Syracuse and Creighton. Those are good teams that they played, and they've beaten good teams to show for it as well.
I just don't think that you can give Villanova a number 1 seed if you're basing it off the fact that Wichita State also plays in a weak conference. Villanova plays in a much weaker conference than teams.
Not Wichita State.
Not Wichita State. Obviously not Wichita State. But if you're gonna say Villanova gets it over Wichita State, I'm gonna say neither one of them gets it in that case, and you give it to somebody either Kansas or Michigan State.
Oh, I like Michigan State, but they're losing too much right now.
I hear you on Villanova. I do. Villanova's good. The loss against Creighton, to me, was an aberration. Because Creighton hit how many threes?
21.
Yeah, that's not going to happen every game. So I give them a pass on that. Yeah, they got beaten by Syracuse, but they came out on fire. I believe they were up 25-7 or something at one point. I was sitting there as a Cuse fan just like, what the hell am I watching? Like, what happened to the Orange? And second half was a completely different story. I like Ryan Arcidiacono. Yeah. Jay Bell is very good. Jason Pinkston is a monster down low. I hear you on Villanova. I can't give them a 1 seed. They're a 2 or a 3 in my opinion. If they keep up their run.
Lenardi has them as a 2 right now.
Yeah, if they keep up, if they fall to someone that's not very good, I think they drop to a 5 or 6. But they're a good team. They're a sleeper team, and Jay Wright's a great coach.
Ryan Arcidiacono will be the Marshall Henderson of this year's March Madness. He is going to be the fan favorite.
But he's not going to be a jerk.
True. I mean, on the court, talent-wise, Marshall Henderson of this tournament.
Yeah. I want to make 2 comments about the rankings this week.
Maldita sea, can I make my comment?
No.
Can I make my comment on the top?
Real quick.
Fine, sir. You can go first.
Can I get my C's? That's what I'm talking about. You guys did yours.
Go ahead.
Syracuse, Arizona, Wichita State, and Kansas. Kansas still has to play Texas again, and they still have Oklahoma State again.
The knock on them right now is the fact that they have 5 losses.
Has there ever been a 1 seed with 5 losses? Do we know?
I believe there has.
There has to have been, and the season's not over yet. So
it's
6.
Just that there's other teams that don't have those.
We can assume that there'll be 6 or 7 losses
like
by
Michigan
the
State
end.
only has 3.
Carney has something to say.
No, he doesn't.
I haven't given my top 4. It's Syracuse, Arizona, and Florida for me. But I think one guy That,
Is that 3?
yeah, I was getting to my 4th.
Oh!
He can do math.
Sorry.
Look,
Say it.
there's one team that I think everyone's kind of overlooking because they're beaten up right now and they're losing some games. But when all these guys get healthy, they're going to be one of the best teams in the country. And they're going to get healthy a week or so before the tournament starts or before their conference tournament starts. Would you guys take a guess at who I'm talking about? No. Yep. Adrian Payne will be back. Brandon Dawson's out another 3 weeks.
I don't really think anybody's overlooking Michigan State though right now. I think it's just that they're right now currently with the way the teams are, they're the odd man out.
I think a lot of people are forgetting about them and how talented they are. I mean,
Oh no, they're to me they're number 5 right now. And as soon as one of these teams fall out of having their chance to be a top 4 seed, I think Michigan State's the first one in.
We're all making very valid arguments. We can make all the arguments that we want to, but something we could probably all agree on is that this has been one of the most exciting and even balanced college basketball seasons that we've seen in ages.
Absolutely.
that's what makes me love this game.
Oh yeah.
And love this year alone.
Because they aren't paid too.
I just want to make my comment.
There you
about
go.
the Kings.
How
Go ahead.
are you?
I want to know 2 things.
Go ahead.
One, gotta roll up the sleeves for this one.
Oh, God.
Michigan loses to an unranked Indiana. They stay at number 10. I don't want to hear it from you.
Assembly Hall is one of the hardest places in the country to play.
I'm not denying that. I'm just denying the fact. I'm stating the fact that they stayed at 10. They didn't
Okay.
move. And Duke, I don't care if it was Syracuse, they lost and jumped up 6 spots. Up. They went from 17 to 11 off of a loss.
Yeah,
How does that make any sense?
it doesn't.
If you want to jump them up, okay, they played an extremely tough opponent. If you want to jump them up 2 spots, that's fine.
And they
Guess what?
jumped, and they Texas was behind them, but Texas has beat 4 straight ranked teams and still didn't manage to get past the Duke team.
And they beat
that
Kansas
moved up.
this week.
Yeah, that was yeah.
I have a grape.
Texas,
I'm
watch
holding a
out.
grape against-
Side note, Texas, watch out.
I'm holding a grape against the ranking system.
Rick
right now.
Barnes, great job this year.
Yeah, people were calling for him to be fired last year. He finally has the talent in place to beat these teams. People wanted him to keep reproducing the next Kevin Durant every year. That's why I hate Texas fans. They're so spoiled. They think, oh, we're Texas. You got to bring these guys in. Same thing with the football coaching search. Oh, pay Art Browse, whatever you want. That's a topic for another day. We're going to get on another team I really can't stand. And
They're the number 1 seed coming up.
what?
I'm just kidding. It was a joke. Ha ha. Ha ha, Clinton Dix.
Oh,
Oh.
the team I'm talking about, the Pitt Panthers, who are hanging on by a thread in the top
That
25.
was hard
Not
to
after
watch.
this week. They lost already this week. No, they didn't. No, that was Sunday. That was Sunday. Never
That
mind.
was something they lost to
That was-
Virginia.
Yeah, that was so they did drop. Never mind.
Virginia. Wah.
They almost lost to Miami.
Hey,
In Miami. Give them credit on that. In
No!
yes, because you just
Miami.
said
You
that.
said it 2 weeks ago. You said it 2 weeks ago that it's hard to go in and beat Miami at Miami.
But I understand that. I'm not saying it's easy to go down to Coral Gables and beat the Hurricanes in their own arena. But if Pitt is as good as everyone wants to say they are in this area, how'd you only put up 46 points in regulation against Miami, coming off a game you only scored 45 against Virginia?
They're not. The first thing is they're not as good as people think they
Yeah,
are. Here.
who are you quoting or who you
Yinzers. Yinzers.
Uncredible sources.
These are bad.
That was probably offensively one of the most painful games I've ever watched, and also free throw shooting has got to be on the topic of discussion for both those teams. Did you? Look, okay, and if you're just playing Pitt, I'm sorry, guard 21, double team, triple team, and that's it.
Because nobody else can score.
Yeah.
That is their only team. You ask how they were in a close game with Miami. I'll tell you right now how they were in a close game with Miami. They shot 33% from the floor in that game. 33%. And I had someone ridiculously tell me that that's who Syracuse needs to look out for as a loss,
Who?
a potential loss.
Oh, right.
No.
Who? Why
No
not?
names.
Why not?
No names.
No names.
Someone said that Syracuse
do
needs
that.
to look out for Pitt.
I did it.
I know you
Someone
do that.
said Syracuse needs to look out for Pitt. If they shoot 54 shots and make 18 of them against Pitt, who plays a 2-3 like Miami did, forget it. It's a wrap. That's a blowout. in Pitt on their home court. Pitt is a one I don't even want to say one-dimensional team. They have one player. And that's how it was last night. That's how it's been the whole season. They have one player. One player with NBA potential. One player, Lamar Patterson. That is it. The guy's a beast, but that is all they got.
What on earth are you doing?
I look good.
He was Kaepernicking. I'm going to say this.
Oh, boy.
If Syracuse loses on the road at Pitt, and I think it's in a week from today, I believe, right?
Wait,
Syracuse
go
and
one
Pitt?
more time with this.
Syracuse and Pitt, you said?
If Syracuse loses to Pitt,
I will
I quit.
wear...
it is next Wednesday, the 12th.
Okay. I will wear...
For the podcast on Thursday.
Oh, no, he's got to wear it all day.
I will wear it all day Thursday. I
What's
will
your
wear...
jersey?
Huh?
What jersey is it?
I'll wear a Boston Red Sox jersey in this
doesn't even make
building.
sense.
I'm a New York Yankees
I'll
fan.
give you mine. I will wear Pitt Panthers gear.
I will love it.
I don't know where I'll get it. I don't own any, but I'll wear Pitt Panthers gear.
We'll find it. Don't
It's
worry.
not going to happen. Lamar Patterson, very good player. They have no secondary options. If Miami hits 5 free throws down the stretch,
It's over.
it's over. It's a wrap. Pitt overrated. When will people open their eyes and stop being homers? I mean, saying Pitt is a Sweet 16 team is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life.
What seed are they? Tournament.
I'll give them a 5, but they're going to lose to a 12 seed in the first
Well,
round.
I told you this. I told you this a couple days ago. The last bracketology I looked at had him as a 6, playing Colorado. They're getting crushed in that game, especially if Dinwiddie is able to play. Right now, currently, Lenardi dropped them. He dropped them to a 7, but he has them playing Minnesota as a 10.
That's a loss. That's a loss. Minnesota will bang with them down low. I like the Collins brothers. Well, they're not brothers, but they're
The
same.
Collins is.
The Collins is, yes, on the perimeter. Pitt, to me, is terrible. Jamie Dixon, great regular season. He's the Peyton Manning of regular season coaches. Great in the regular season.
But let's see what
Comes to
happens.
tournament, he's terrible.
Let's see what happens when he schedules people out of conference
Yeah.
in regular season.
Yeah,
That's-
Wichita State. Why don't you do the
Wait,
same?
wait.
Greg Marshall.
Hang on, a little bit different. We're gonna give Wichita State right now the benefit of the doubt in the fact that it's not necessarily currently their choice to play in that conference.
Well, I'm not talking about conference. You said out of conference play.
I
I think
know.
Greg Marshall and Jamie Dixon need to sit down and have a conversation. Look, we need to play good teams outside of our conference.
But whenever
Let's play each other.
Well, when you're
There you go. It's a date. Greg Marshall, Jamie Dixon, Wichita State, Pitt.
Neutral site.
I know you're listening.
The other thing.
Come on, play each other, please.
You know,
Dan.
you
Go
good?
ahead.
On Wichita State's side, Pitt, they're completely different animals in the fact that Wichita State plays in such a bad conference that if they go out and schedule every single out-of-conference game as an extremely tough opponent, they're going to be so worn down by the time they get to conference play that they're not going to be able to do anything. Pitt, on the other hand, plays in a strong conference, so if they go out and schedule 1 or 2, it makes them look like so much of a better team.
But what if they lose to those 1 or 2 teams they
Well,
schedule?
then they're just terrible like they already are. So it's no
They,
different.
they don't have anything at all.
It's just horrible to begin with.
A team I want to move on to that's really struggling as of late and really frustrating to watch. The Oklahoma State Cowboys have lost. Kyle, how many in a row?
A lot. Like 4, 5. I don't know, 4 of 5. There you
Ohio
go.
State like?
3. No, it's 4 of 5, and they lost 3 in a row.
Straight.
It's 4 of 5, and they lost 3 in a row. There you go.
Ohio State like?
Right?
Ish.
Yes.
Kyle, what's the problem with these, as they say, the pokes?
Who in the world knows? I want to confidently say, and this is just off the top from watching the game, that Marcus Smart took all but 2 shots in the in the overtime period. That's a problem right off the bat. You have people like LeBron Nash who is good, but he just takes too many shots. He takes too much advantage of his role. You have Markel Brown who is a good player but doesn't get enough shots. He's a player that has potential to average more than Marcus Smart, and he doesn't. You said that the Cobbins injury hurt the team, but he was only averaging 4.5 points per game.
I'm talking as a defensive factor because teams are getting into the lane at will on them and grabbing offensive boards.
Well,
Kamari Murphy, not a great rebounder.
Well, I mean, there's all sorts of problems over there. They just don't look to be playing as a team. I think there's too much talent, kind of like what's going on down in Kentucky. there's almost too much talent on one team that they're just not really clicking. They can't beat a ranked team at all. There's a little bit more experience there than a team like Kentucky. But Phil Forte is not getting the shots that he needs. Marcus Smart is definitely not getting the shots that he needs. A team like that's definitely just going to have to say, look, we need to come together. We need to play as a team because we have all the talent we need.
Who's their next game?
Texas Tech Saturday. If they lose that one, say it.
Come on, they're not going to lose.
They're not going to lose.
Well, it's at Texas Tech, but that's not true.
They're not going to lose to Texas.
Okay,
Tech.
but then they have Texas after that and Oklahoma after that. It's a wrap. They are not ranked by the end of the season, and they were looked at as a team that could possibly be number 1 going into the tournament.
Granted, I hear everything you're saying. I'm not concerned if they're ranked at the end of the year, as long as they get into the tournament.
Oh my goodness! If they did not make the tournament, that's embarrassing, because Marcus Smart was a player that was a potential player of the year, and if you have a potential player of the year on your team, you should at least make the tournament.
And I'm also not going to say that because the fact they get into the tournament is going to be good enough for them, because look what they ran into last year.
It's not. I think you're taking what I'm saying the wrong way. Get into the tournament. Don't worry about having all these high expectations. Just get in and make noise. Be an Oregon. You know what I'm trying to say?
But they should have been.
You're saying get in the dance.
They should have been a Kentucky from the Anthony Davis year. That's what they should have been. And now you're saying to be an Oregon. We shouldn't be at this point.
Well,
this team has all the talent in the world.
This team's even different than that Kentucky team because they have
Experience.
They played together for a full year, all
Yeah.
of them, except for Phil Forte.
Right.
Well, Forte and Smart
I just
played
meant-
together for 6 years.
I
because
just
they went to high school together.
meant talent-wise, they're like a Kentucky, just because
Yeah.
they have every player on the team is something to.
And Stevie Clark's gone again, technically. I mean, he was suspended the first time, but now he's been excused from the team for urinating out of a moving vehicle.
Nice.
Yeah.
Kyle, to you, I know you and I were watching this game. I believe it was Monday night against Iowa State.
Yes.
Game of the year so far.
Yeah. Just the stage wasn't as bright as Duke Syracuse, but for a real college basketball fan, that's definitely the game of the year.
Kyle, my question to you is, how does Oklahoma State get back on track?
Winning. Simple as that. It sounds so obvious, but this team has all the talent they need to. I just said this a moment ago. They need to sit down with each other, look each other in the face, say, look, you're just as talented as I am. You're just as talented as I am. Let's start playing together and, realizing that if we just, get each other the shots that we need to get, then we could definitely be potentially one of the best teams going into the tournament, because they do play 4 teams in Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, and Iowa State that are ranked currently.
A run in those final 4 games, they could be right back up there in the upper echelon of teams because they're all ranked. Those final 4 teams are ranked,
And that,
correct?
Yes, that's what I meant by turning it around. They win those games. They have turned it around.
And they still have to go into Baylor again.
Which Baylor's really fallen off. I'm
Well,
kind of
they
surprised.
They lost. They kind of did what Oklahoma State did. They lost at a point, got to the point where they lost 3 straight. But Baylor has a bunch of talent down there too. I mean,
Yeah, that's another team like Oklahoma State. They weren't expected to be as good as Oklahoma State, but they were expected to be towards the top.
sorry, Baylor lost 5 straight, and
Yeah.
now they've lost.
They're awful, and they were supposed to be good. I'm going to go ahead and say that Oklahoma State, at least right now, is awful, and they were supposed to be good.
I'm right there with you, man. I hear you. Dimitri, you were kind of looking at me like I was
No, I'm looking at
from a different planet.
I'm looking at Kyle. How did they turn it around?
Winning. They play 4 ranked opponents. If they win those games, they have turned it around.
And-
You can't say if Wichita State lost 2 games, they need to turn it around by winning, because that's not turning it around against bum teams. Oklahoma State plays good teams. You win, you've turned it around.
Well, then they still have to play, like we said, Baylor, who they've already lost to, and a Kansas State team that's no pushover.
Yeah, and Baylor.
At Iowa State to finish the season.
Yeah, and then they play, and then that'll be fun.
Which, speaking of Iowa State, guys, this is just off the top of my head. I want to know everyone's top 5 players in the country, because there's been arguments all around with some ridiculous players being mentioned as Wooden Award finalists. I texted you my top 5. I'll just run through them really quickly. C.J. Fair, and not in any particular order. C.J. Fair, Joel Embiid, Andrew Wiggins, Jabari Parker, and I would have DeAndre Kane right up there. I love DeAndre Kane.
Yeah,
He's phenomenal.
he's a great player. Can we all?
And think about this. Marshall revoked his scholarship, and he was scheduled to go to Pitt because he's from Pittsburgh. The NCAA stepped in and said, no, you can't come here. Yeah. So Fred Hoiberg and the Cyclones were like, hey, come on out here. And he's phenomenal. I love watching him.
And since this is an off the top of the head subject, let's just all put our heads together here. And Dan, maybe you say a player, and then I won't say the same player. But let's not.
The only one that you left out that I can really think of off the top of my head is Julius Randle down in Kentucky. He's leading the nation for freshmen in scoring with 19.9 points a game, also pulling down almost close to 8 boards a game too. The kid's an absolute monster. I mean, you're right. Jabari Parker, Julius Randle, Jabari Parker, Wiggins, Embiid, who's probably, if he comes out, going to be the number 1 pick in the NBA draft as of now. Nobody has any complaints with C.J. Fair, shouldn't, or DeAndre Kane. We all would have said Marcus Smart at the beginning of the year, but you can't put him in there right now. The only one that I see left out of what you said is Randall.
Yeah, you guys are loving the freshman who I'm particularly not liking. You said Jabari Parker. I'll just kind of I mean, I agree with everyone you've said so far. I can't even really think of – has Doug McDermott's name come up in this conversation?
Not between us, but here and there.
He's right there in my opinion.
He's not a top 5 player in the nation?
To me,
he did not take Creighton single-handedly to be a team that's in the conversation of, like, a good team.
He has some pieces.
He's the second leading scorer in the nation and the first amongst relevant teams.
None of us are
Doug
complaining
McDermott is a freak. He's the best player in the nation.
I hear you, but he's not in my top 5 because I think those other players have upside and they bring other things to the game because McDermott doesn't play defense.
Oh, my God.
I'm a big defensive guy. I'm serious.
I love that you're a defensive guy. It sounds to me like you guys are saying top 5 players that will be good in the NBA because none of these freshmen are making huge impacts. Kentucky was supposed to be before the season said to one of my buddies, is Kentucky going to lose a game this year? And they've lost tons of them.
Lost 4.
Who cares? They weren't supposed to lose any with the top 5 or 5 of the top 10 freshmen in the nation.
I don't think...
I did say freshmen.
I know. To me, I don't think C.J. Fair will be good in the NBA. I'm not sure his game can translate.
We're talking about college, and C.J. Fair will not be good in the NBA. That's why he's been in college for 4 years because he hasn't gotten looks from NBA teams, but he's probably the second best player in college behind Doug McDermott, who's a college player. Tyler Hansbrough was a college player. Adam Morrison was a college player. Ryan Kelly, who had a great game last night, college player. There are college players. There are NBA players.
If you can't play defense in college, you're not an NBA player.
Nobody's denying that at all.
I'm saying you mentioned you guys are mentioning guys that are going to be good in the NBA. I don't think Fair's game really translates. He may be a spot-up shooter off the bench. We know Parker's game's going to translate. He's a big guy, very athletic. DeAndre Kane, I'm not sure. For some reason, I can't put my finger on who he reminds me of. But he's pretty good. Marcus Smart's game translates. Joel Embiid, clearly. He might be the best center as soon as he steps into basketball. That conversation could be had between him and Roy Hibbert. Any other center I'm completely forgetting.
Anthony Davis, who's a beast.
I think of him as a power forward. I'm sorry.
He's a beast.
He's not a power forward.
He's a monster.
And it's pretty sad he's not in the All-Star game.
And there's a couple other guys we've left out too that you could throw their name in there in the hat or in the ring as well. There's a couple from Michigan State. You could throw Gary Harris in there. You could throw Keith Appling.
Oh yeah. Adrian Payne, you could throw him in there.
He's been out for too long for me.
He's good though. He's a good college player.
He's
a good college player.
What about the White Wolf in the North? Nick Stauskas.
You can absolutely throw Nick Stauskas in the top 5 conversation. Once again, let me go ahead and wrap this up, and I'm not even the host. Something we can all agree on is that there are 20 players in Division I basketball this year that could be called top 5 players. That's what makes this season as great as it's been. That's what makes the potential NBA draft as exciting as it's going to be. I can't wait.
Let me ask you this.
Can't wait.
Being that we're just outside the Pittsburgh area, is Lamar Patterson in your top 5? Even any consideration?
Close.
No. No, he's great.
He's good.
No, you know what? He is in that 20 players thing because someone could probably make a good case for him. He's the only player on that team, and they're ranked unjustly, but like they're ranked.
If he's not on Pitt, if he's on a different team, if he's on a...
Say he plays for Duke or North Carolina. Same conversation?
No.
Is he still dropping 17?
No, he's not.
No,
he's not. There's another. I forget who it was. There was another player earlier in the year that we talked about and said that I can't remember who it was, but we said that if somebody else, whatever, I'm going to skip that. But right now, bringing off what you said about the Lamar Patterson, I have the Wooden Award finalists up right now. Patterson's not on the list, but he's in the most talked about snubs.
No. Pitt sucks. I'm saying it right now. Pitt sucks.
And another one we left out, if you're going to put Doug McDermott in there, Clay Anthony Early, too.
Ooh.
Oh, yeah.
Ron Baker.
Ron Baker. I do like Clay Anthony Early a lot, though.
All right, guys, that's going to do it for the college basketball talk. Anything to add? Really quickly.
Sure, I got something to add that happened while we were saying this podcast. Well, at least it was made official, is that Damian Lillard will participate in all 5 All-Star Weekend events. That's the rookie-sophomore game, the All-Star game, dunk contest, skills competition, and the three-point contest. That right there solidifies him as one of my favorite players in the NBA because I love people who love the game. If you're going to participate in all 5 All-Star Weekend events, you clearly, sir, love the game.
Real quick question for you three before we get out of here. I love Damian Lillard. He's one of my top 5 players in the game. Who would you rather start a team with right now, Lillard or Kyrie Irving?
Start a team with, give me Kyrie. If you're going to give someone like LaMarcus Aldridge to Damian Lillard, give me Damian Lillard. But if you're literally starting a team from scratch. Kyrie Irving.
I'd have to agree with that.
Yeah, because he scores.
Shaking your head, Dimitri. Who you got?
Kyrie. There's no discussion.
But if you give Kyrie LaMarcus Aldridge, he doesn't take the Cavs as far as Damian Lillard took LaMarcus Aldridge and the Blazers because Damian Lillard's less selfish.
But he also doesn't have. Kyrie Irving doesn't have quite. He has some. They're becoming a better team, although they're terrible now. But Lillard has some pieces.
Oh yeah, no, he's a.
Kyrie Irving does not, especially.
All right, guys.
Pens made a minor trade today, but that doesn't
Go.
matter.
Do you want to announce it?
No, I don't remember the kid's name.
They made a trade with Columbus.
Yeah,
who's taking Stamkos' spot for Kevin?
St. Louis.
I like that.
Much deserved.
Cool.
Claude.
No.
Oh, hush. He has the best.
Thornton.
Yeah, well, that's an argument. All right, guys, that's going to do it for the 5th installment of the Out of Bounds podcast. Sorry for running so over our time.
Hey, if they like us so much, they'll listen. That's
Yeah. Check us out on iTunes. Search The Pen.
Twitter page.
Do we have a Twitter page there,
Oh,
Master?
the Twitter page is coming. Later to be named what the handle will be.
We also will be debuting a blog for the Out of Bounds podcast.
WordPress. The 4 of us, including your expert Dan Wallace, will all be contributing.
Yes.
The 3 of us plus your expert.
Well, and Goose will, I'm assuming, will write. Cody Benjamin will write. Pat Damp, when he comes on Tuesday, will be covering the Olympics for us. So check that out on WordPress. We will tweet the links to that. But for Kyle Condor, Dimitri George, our assistant producer, although he's studying his iPad right now.
No, he's playing Flappy Bird.
Come on.
Sorry.
See ya.
And for
Go ahead.
Dan Wallace, I'm your host, Josh Carney.
All right, see ya.